Welcome to Brighteon.tv. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon. Today we have a red alert issue that is going to immediately affect not just Texans, but potentially people, tens of millions of people all across the country. We have a guest joining us. We're going to call him Tony. You might call him an analyst, perhaps a whistleblower. I mean, he's just trying to sound the alert on what we're going to talk about here, which is that the Joe Biden executive order, it appears, based on what we know so far, that EO about mandatory vaccines is going to be pushed onto every city and county and private business that accepts COVID bailout money from here forward. And Tony's going to help us interpret this information. Maybe I've misstated it. We're going to try to get the right answers here and get into the details. That's coming up. Stay with us right here on Brighteon.tv. We'll be right back. All right, we're back on Brighteon.tv. Mike Adams here. Thank you for joining me. We are joined now by Tony, audio only. We're protecting Tony's identity. He is someone who's very versed in grant writing and the flow of funds in governments and federal funds moving to local communities at the county and city level and flowing into contractors. Now, Tony, first of all, I want to thank you for joining me today on this red alert issue.
Thank you very much. Listen, one of the things that I'd like to maybe simplify is that federal money never loses its identity.
Okay.
It can't just go away. And then federal money, you cannot commingle. So it always has to be identified.
All right. So you're saying that when these local municipalities, when they receive federal money via the COVID stimulus bailout money, what's it called exactly?
It's a federal stimulus program.
Okay.
But the thing is that it never loses its identity. It always has to be identified. And because at some point, the auditors are going to come and they're going to want to see either a tangible product or a service that was provided. So you're going to have to, when they interview you or audit you, you're going to have to show one of two things. If it's a building, then they want to see the building. They want to see how you're using it, and the use has to be in context with the federal allocation of funds.
So then these federal funds that are used by local municipalities, then they have come with terms and conditions, including the enforcement of all federal executive orders. Is that correct?
Right. Each local government, be it city or county, signs a contract with the federal government, and the federal government says, we will give you the money based upon you complying with the following regulations. And that's how the process starts. That's how they get you to follow the regulations that they want.
So
if you don't follow them, you don't have to take the money.
Well, right, but what if you take the money and then you don't push the vaccine mandates to your employees and contractors? Then what remedies can the federal government subject you to if you don't follow?
Normally what happens is, and quite frankly, that is the issue here, that they've already given you the money. The requirements are not fully established, and the auditors don't come till maybe the end of the 4 years or whatever the period is. And at that time, they either they declare your actions being not funded by the federal government or not consistent with the requirements, and you have to pick up the cost. That is what is listed in your contract. That is the fear of every program manager, to have to give back something.
So, okay, that brings up huge questions. But in addition to this, as you were telling me earlier, any contractors that are then hired by cities or counties using federal money, those contractors must then also submit their employees to the same EOs coming from Washington.
Right. The county and the local government sign a contract, and that contract becomes a part of the subcontracts that are given, because whoever is going to perform the services is going to comply with the same regulations. And so it goes down the chain of command.
Okay, so in addition to that, there are cases in Texas right now, and you don't have to mention any names of cities or counties, but there are cases in Texas where counties are getting federal money and they're using that money to build service
To employ
entities
people. To employ people.
to employ people and put private companies out of business.
Right. But the point is that when they hire the individuals, they are not federal employees that you hire. They are local employees, but they have to sign a contract just like the local government did, and therefore they have to comply with the requirements of that contract. If they don't, they get fired.
So let me set up the scenario here. In the state of Texas currently, because Governor Abbott issued his executive order on October 11th, prohibiting any private companies from requiring vaccine mandates for their employees. However, what you are saying is that there could be a private company in Texas that hires local people, and this private company provides services to a county, and the county has taken money from the federal government. Therefore, then the EO of Biden requiring vaccine mandates flows with that money through the county to the local employer, to the local employees. That's the requirement from Washington, D.C., despite what Governor Abbott has signed.
What happens is that exactly what you said. The responsibility for implementing the activities flows with the contract. If you don't want to accept the activities, then or the money, then you don't sign the contract. It's really rather typical, but that's the way that the federal requirements are passed on to the common individual who simply is making a sign or providing a service.
And then right now in the Texas legislature, Senate Bill 8 and I think HR Bill, 145, I believe, are screaming through the legislature right now in order to accept and redistribute, $16 or $17 billion in federal funds in the state of Texas?
The thing is that I don't think, from my experience, no local government is going to be able to refuse that. They're going to do it, and whatever the requirements are. The problem is going to come at the end of the period when they've spent all the money and the auditors come in. There are two types of audits, the program audit and a financial audit. Since they're so far from the beginning, you're looking at 4 to 5 years afterwards, it is going to be very difficult for the local governments to prove that they have complied with the requirements of the contract. If in some cases the contracts have not been is consummated.
Okay. How doesn't this put then local governments in the position of also pushing extreme coercion about vaccine compliance?
Right. It almost feels like the federal government does not intend to audit, does not intend to do anything other than push them to follow federal regulations, which is you will have all your employees vaccinated and they will all wear masks and they will all jump 4 feet off the feet when you come in. It's an untenable situation because you don't know what the end product is.
This almost seems like a universal basic income for municipalities, that as the economy is losing, the local governments are losing revenues because of the massive unemployment, small businesses shutting down with inability to acquire labor, collapsing supply chains in many situations, and so on. So local governments are strapped for cash. So they're taking this federal money. It's kind of like a universal basic income with conditions.
In most cases, what is happening right now is, and I really don't understand it, the property values are increasing. Now, we have been in lockdown for several months, about 18 months, and yet the value of property is increasing because the local governments in Texas control the appraisal districts, and the appraisal districts are responding to the need for more money from the local government for the local government. So the cities have a twofold advantage. They're getting money from the federal government. They refer to it as free money, and then they can also coerce the appraisal districts to increase the value of the land. Therefore, they're getting more taxes from the people. And then therefore, in many areas of Texas where we have high degree of low income people, the families are losing their homes because of this process.
And the traditional family farms as well.
Right. It produces the process that is being pushed by the Biden administration is going to create more poor people.
Of course, mass poverty, it seems, is the plan, actually. At least in my opinion, that seems to be the outcome that they're desiring. The other factor in all of this is that only Washington, D.C. has the ability to create money from nothing. They are printing the money and then using that money to exert this political influence or even medical influence over states.
Yeah, what is difficult to understand is the more money they put out, the less its value, and that produces inflation.
Right.
It's the no-win situation. People are doing things that they wouldn't normally do, and the government is printing money. The value of the dollar is going down, and everything is going up. Now the products are now materials for construction are exceedingly expensive, and all the processes are going out. I mean, this is an untenable situation. It cannot end well.
No, it cannot end well. But getting back to vaccines, many Texans believe that these vaccines are not approved by the FDA. In fact, they are not. The FDA only approved Comirnaty, which is not available in the United States. Many Texans don't want to be part of this medical experiment. They would want to wait, even if they are pro-vaccine themselves, they would like to wait until the experimentation phase is over. But they feel like through this, they're being kind of secretly compelled to take vaccines in order to just receive a paycheck or get paid for a contract, maybe even a landscaping contract.
It's not a secret. Everybody is being coerced to do this. But one of the things that I'm going to say, this goes back to it's not going to end well, because everything is being inflated, and the loser here are the families.
Yes.
And for example, we're not imposing the federal mandates to keep people from coming into the United States, so we're getting more poor people. The people that are coming in are not rich.
No.
So in Texas, there's a variety of places that are have high unemployment and high poverty rates. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot in this situation.
Well, and even more importantly, I think we've also seen Jen Psaki at the White House essentially declaring that states have no states' rights, it seems. So we have 10th Amendment issues here. Are we going to arrive at a tipping point soon, in your view, where Texas must assert nullification of bad federal coercion in order to preserve the state of Texas?
I think the governor has taken a very good lead in saying that we will not do a mask mandate. We will not get vaccinated if you don't want to. If you want to get vaccinated, that is fine. But if you don't want to, the government shouldn't coerce you to do this. Why? Would you buy a product that they can't say, that is not guaranteed to work, or that if you got something, you may not, you can spread it to someone else? It's, you take the shot and then they can't guarantee that it'll work, and you may still be transmittable to other people. You wouldn't buy this product.
No, of course not. Many of the people getting vaccinated wish they had not. A lot of people regret it. A lot of people feel that they're being coerced, and they're leaving their jobs in hospitals or in the military or at Boeing, for example, or first responders, police officers, sheriff's deputies, firefighters are quitting.
Right. We have no understanding of what happens over time. And so we're waiting for like a balloon payment at the end. All these things are very volatile, and it seems like our elected officials can't seem to do the right thing for the right reason.
Well, that's my next question. What is your assessment of the knowledge about all of this among Texas legislators and their feeling about all of this?
I think that the people are beginning to recognize the fact that this vaccine and wearing masks is not good for them, and it has not caused the property values to increase. That's silly, and so they're just opposing.
Okay, now just to further establish some of your credentials, We're not releasing your name, and we want to protect your identity because of what you're sharing with us. But what is your level of knowledge with how government works? And don't give away anything that would identify you specifically, but how do you know these things?
Okay. I have been involved with local governments for about 24 years in both the local and the regional character. I'm specifically familiar with HUD, the Community Development Program, Narcotics Task Force programs, most of the major grants for local governments that are available in the state of Texas, because that's what I've been doing for the extent of my life.
So you very well understand the conditions that come with federal grant money.
Very much so. And this is kind of a unique time in that the federal grant money is being used to do something that the general population does not agree with. Nobody wants to get a shot. Nobody wants to wear a mask. But quite frankly, the mask is a sign of fear, because it's not going to protect you. I mean, we've already had medical decisions that tell you that the mask will not keep you from getting the virus. So,
but
why would you wear it?
Even worse, under the VAERS system run by HHS, it currently shows over 16,000 Americans have likely been killed by these vaccines, and we know those numbers vastly underrepresent the real numbers. It could be hundreds of thousands. In fact, other reasonable estimates are that hundreds of thousands of Americans have died. Doesn't this then put the federal government in the class of being complicit in essentially ordering the deaths of Americans?
It's kind of like an unwilling participant. They seem to be wanting to do something, but they're not sure of what they want to do, and they're not sure of how to get there. We have no idea what this is going to do to the population on a long-term basis, and it's certainly not going to help our existing situation. Poverty is getting greater under these programs.
No,
they're designed to help the people.
Right. But at the same time that poverty is vastly increasing, and from the experts I've interviewed, we are going to come into a time here where those who were vaccinated may suffer antibody-dependent enhancement and other very harmful effects, blood clotting over time, and so on. We are going to see, according to my sources, really a collapse of first responders in these cities where poverty and crime are increasing at the same time. So fewer police, fewer ambulance drivers, fewer paramedics, EMTs, firefighters, and so on. What will that look like for cities in Texas?
Why would a government support an activity that they're not sure of what the consequences are going to be, especially over a long term? Why would they do that to a population that is very vulnerable to the suggestion or to the purchase of the service? Why would you do this, to your own people?
Well, yes,
this is a question that I have for especially the elected officials that have the ability to ask questions and get expert advice. If they can do that, if you're in a position to have experts tell you, how can you come to the conclusion that getting everybody vaccinated, even those that don't need it, that was a good thing? How can you come to the conclusion that wearing a mask is going to be helpful when nobody thinks that's the case?
Well, but it seems like in the hysteria and the kind of media-induced panic of all of this, you have decision makers who are just bypassing rationality, evidence, real science, and so on, or even the rule of law in many cases. They are just dictating. They're just issuing decisions without considering the consequences. But my question to you, sir, is what does this look like 6 months down the road as these cities lose their first responders?
I would be willing to say that the longer this situation lasts, that is the getting vaccinated and the wearing masks, and certainly there are going to be other things to come. There will be growing objection to the implementation of programs that are funded by this administration.
What would that objection look like? You mean grassroots people calling their local members of state Congress?
Is that we'll begin to elect people that object to these positions. We now have an election in November, and then after that, we have a variety of elections that I think, or I hope, that the people that are running will take a different view of this administration's effort to hog-tie the population.
But Texas is already, especially in these rural areas, it's already run by Republicans in many cases. I'm not talking about Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin and so on, but
that's a very important point. Yes. So why aren't the Republicans standing up?
Right, and even in the rural areas, as this economic collapse, maybe not collapse, but let's say slowdown, aren't they going to be desperate for federal money?
Yes. Right now, what I would say that the government can pay for by handing out money, but you see, you can't keep handing out money. The economy will collapse. The value of the dollar will become less, and we'll need. I mean, it's not a good thing for us to do. You don't have to be a financial genius to figure this out. We are going to be in a very tough financial situation.
Well, I mean, that's a whole different topic. You're absolutely right. At some point, frankly, I think the dollar has lost about 50% of its purchasing value in the last 12 months alone for people who buy food and fuel. And that's everybody. Right? I mean, look at grocery prices right now.
The question we have to ask is, how smart do you have to be to figure out that this is not a good thing to do?
But the typical American, even the typical Texan, isn't up to speed on all of this like you and I are. There's a slow adjustment period for this information to kind of seep into consciousness, and it's going to be too late for a lot of these folks.
Right. The people at the bottom of the barrel, the people that were very low income, are going to be the most vulnerable. They're going to become dependent totally on the federal government, and based upon how much money we've spent, I don't know if the federal government is going to be able to support them.
So then we need to, I mean, the food banks are going to be overwhelmed. The churches are going to be overwhelmed. The homelessness is going to skyrocket. All of these things.
And, the churches are going to have to stand up. Traditionally, the preachers and at the pulpit are going to have to say, you should participate in the electoral process because that's your way out.
All right. And are the legislators, do they have the backbone to stand up against any of this?
I don't. They're go-alongers. And I don't really understand that because they can't all be dumb.
No, they're not dumb. Many of them are high IQ attorneys, frankly, who got into there because of their law degrees and so on. Governor Abbott is taking some action, but it always seems kind of too weak, too late. I thank Abbott for the current EO, but why not do that 6 months ago?
Think the logic of we're all in this boat, and there's a heck of a lot of people that are putting holes in the boat. They don't seem to understand that they're in the boat too.
Right, exactly right. And actually, the more bailouts that you pursue in the boat, the more you're sinking under, because the federal bailouts come with these conditions. Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to share this with us. We're going to get this out and sound the alarm. And please keep us informed of the status of SB 8 and other efforts, because we've got to warn all Texans and also people all across the country about similar things happening in their states. So thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And for those of you watching, spread the word, share this with your local legislators across Texas, and feel free to repost this on other platforms. This is Mike Adams here for Brighteon.tv. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and take care. Survival Nutrition is our new free audiobook that you can download right now from survivalnutrition.com. In this nearly 8-hour audiobook, you will learn life-saving secrets of how to use food, nutrients, plant molecules, trace minerals, and chemical compounds to save your life, even in a total collapse scenario. I'm Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, and I'm the author of Survival Nutrition. I founded and run a multi-million-dollar food science laboratory, and I'm the author of the best-selling science book, Food Forensics. I'm also a prepper, a patriot, and a survivalist. I can teach you how to survive what's coming by growing your own food, medicine, and antibiotics that can help keep you healthy and alive even during the worst of times. At survivalnutrition.com, you'll be able to instantly download the full free audiobook as MP3 files. Keep a copy of all these files on your local hard drive and print out the full guide just in case we lose the power grid. survivalnutrition.com.